Hello everyone, this is The Science Behind the Music. I'm Dierleif, and today we're going to talk about standing waves and their relation to music. Standing waves, or as some people like to refer to them as dancing waves, are a special type of wave where the system of vibrations is fixed between 2 points where there is no motion. A typical traveling wave moves in the direction of propagation, unlike the standing wave, which moves up and down. Those two endpoints of no motion are called nodes, and in a standing wave there can be nodes in between those endpoints as well, but there don't have to be. Nodes are areas of zero amplitude, where there is destructive interference. Antinodes, on the other hand, are areas of maximum displacement, or in other words, areas of maximum amplitude, which are constructive points. These are the two main parts of a standing wave. There are many possibilities for the different frequencies of standing waves that a certain medium can have with two closed points. The simplest one is half a wavelength and would reach from one node on one endpoint to the other, like a hill, since it has only one antinode, and it would move up and down. This wave is called the fundamental, or the first harmonic. The second harmonic is one wavelength, because one node was added to the center, and so the wave was split in half. The third harmonic is 1.5 wavelengths, because the wave is split in thirds. That's pretty simple. There are an infinite number of harmonics, since we would theoretically split the wavelengths into fourths, fifths, sixths, and so on, just by adding more nodes. Each instrument and each voice has its own combination of harmonics. Professor Walton Levin demonstrated and talks about this in a lecture he did.
And so when you see the various instruments, you will recognize that on top of the fundamental, you'll see these very characteristic harmonics, each instrument having its own cocktail, its own unique cocktail, and when you hear that cocktail, you say, oh yeah, that's a saxophone, or you say, no, that's a violin. You would never mistake a saxophone for a violin, and that's because of the combination of the higher harmonics.
Certain instruments have higher frequencies, while others have lower frequencies.
When you have a woodwind instrument which is tuned for low frequencies, it's big. And for high frequencies, like a flute, it's small. In a way, that's also true for string instruments. A bass, which generates low frequencies, is a big instrument. But the violin, which generates high frequencies, is a much shorter instrument.
This is because the length is changed. The shorter the instrument, the higher the frequency. That is how instruments like flutes work. By cutting off the airflow to a certain hole, you're essentially shortening the instrument and creating a higher frequency. Now let's dive into some of the differences between standing waves on strings and in open tubes. Standing waves on strings can be thought about as a jumping rope, but one that moves up and down instead of around. Because the wave is in a medium that has a boundary, it overlaps on itself and creates a wave that appears to be standing, but in reality is moving up and down. String movements, like guitars or violins, have these two fixed points on the end, where the string is tied down. When there's a disruption in the string, created by the friction of the bow on the strings, or by plucking them, it sets the wave in motion. Standing waves in open tubes can be created, for example, by blowing into a bottle. When you blow into a bottle, the air moves, but the air on the closed end is stuck, which is a problem because air wants to oscillate, that is, move back and forth. Because one end of the medium is closed, it interferes with that movement, while on the other end of the bottle, the air can move freely because it is open. This creates varying amounts of displacement. On the open end, the molecules move to the left. Then once it gets closer to the center, it moves less to the left. In the center, it doesn't move at all, That is because there is zero amplitude. In other words, it's a node. However, once you move towards the closed end of the bottle, the molecules move more towards the right, so the standing wave that is created has two peaks, one on either end, and then a node in the middle. These peaks dance up and down and are antinodes. Many instruments are considered open tubes. The flute is one. I think what the takeaway from standing waves has to be is that they're fun and they make music happen. Take it away, orchestra.